we're ready.
Okay.
Let's roll.
Alright, let's move.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Craig Moffitt. I am the client stakeholder for the project that we're about to show you. And I want to take this moment to introduce my project team, and we'll start with Ms. Susan.
Okay. My name's Jenna Wiener, and in the role play exercise that we did as an integrated project delivery team, I served as a contractor.
My name is Kyle Maharaj, and I served as the user group.
I'm Amber Amrang. I served as the architect.
As you see, I am the client stakeholder, and the process that we chose for this particular project was the integrated project delivery method. And this method, we like the way it interacts with all different disciplines inside the spectrum of trying to develop the project. As you can see, the owner group, stakeholders, architects, and contractors all interact and communicate and share information with one another.
Okay. Some of the features and benefits of integrated project delivery, you're aligning a core team of people to a common goal from the very beginning. And it allows for a very collaborative approach. And usually in this type of setting, everyone shares both risk, accountability, and also the upside savings and the profits at the end of the project. And the goal of integrated project delivery is to optimize project results and really reduce costs to the owner as you go through the process, and also protect the owner's concerns and issues that they might have, and to make sure that those ideas that they have are carried through the project and not lost early on. So the team works together to define the project goals and the objectives, and you basically go through recurring sessions of evaluating and adjusting and looking at best practices and deciding how you want to move forward as a team. And in integrated project delivery, you can also use a lot of the current BIM tools to sort of concurrently develop and evaluate your different conceptual models as you're developing the program. And at the end, the options are presented to the owner and user group to make a final decision to move forward. We were thinking specifically about programming within the integrated project delivery process. And so we saw the program as being a part of just early design. And it includes all of the core teams. So it's not just a programmer and an architect. It's an architect and a client and a user and a contractor all coming together, bringing their expertise to the table early on to make really good early decisions. And then ultimately, you try to give the user group the final say when you're making decisions moving forward. And at the end of this programming phase, the team will have defined a program, defined its goals and standards, and also develop some conceptual model options for the user group to review.
Once the core team was assembled, we met with the client, and based off of the brief with that client, the core team's job was to analyze that brief and come up with and use those keywords from that brief to try and express what the client wanted in terms of what the build form would look. These keywords would emulate into the build form. Client talked about creativity, productivity, interconnectivity, state of the art, and innovative. And this also went by. This information was also passed on to the user group also, so they had some say within it. And creativity can be looked at it in terms of performance of users or creativity within the build form and so forth. We looked at those key terms again, and we came up with ways in which to emphasize that within the building. For example, productivity, we looked at renewable energy and natural daylighting rather than fluorescent light. Another way is also interconnectivity. Interconnectivity could be translated into multiple use spaces, interlocking spaces to create a interaction between different people within the building and the relationship between different user groups. Natural lighting through studies, we realized that natural lighting actually increases productivity, which is one of the key words. It's better than fluorescent lighting in terms that natural lighting, it changes throughout the day, and it helps people stay motivated and increases productivity, and it also helps towards a net zero building.
Okay. Also, during the studies and the soliciting all the people in the building to find out the different things that we can use. We would like to use the green technology aspect in trying to develop a new program. A couple strategies listed there that we're looking at, the solar strategies and the geothermal. And combining some of these strategies to get a better return on any enhancement, use green with these photovoltaic. Also, during the surveys that we took throughout the faculty and the students, there was a number of people wanting to have a central located area, a multi-purpose area. So we looked at the precedents, the Google Campus Floor Plan is one of the precedents to incorporate on the design. And in those major areas in the Google Campus, they did have some areas where they have breakout rooms or quiet places where you can do conferences or meetings or flex time, as you see here. We have some illustrations of the different types of flex spaces and or conference rooms. This is the show of the social interaction areas, the main areas, cafe areas, and outdoor areas in these spaces. There's some examples of what we're looking for. We also researched a case study. This building in Seattle, Washington, the Berkeley School of Living Science building, and we're trying to get the net zero goal. So we looked at the Living Building Challenge as our model to try to incorporate in our design. And this particular case study shows us that all the PV systems are generated, their whole use of all their electricity is generated through their UV technology. And the students there monitor the payoff of that energy and expended, as well as the waters that's collected from cisterns, as well as the gray water from rain balls. They reuse it and clean it in the outdoor student living centers.
This is some surveys that we handed out to help with the process of which rooms to eliminate, which rooms they considered important or not important. But it was up to the core team to establish and come up with reasons if to keep them or not in the end result.
We conducted surveys with the students and the faculty, and then we also held an interview with the interim dean, which helped us to start describe our building spaces and think about what kind of spaces we wanted in the new building of architecture based on the new way we saw architecture being taught, and new technologies that would be available to us. So this is an example of the facility spaces that we came up with. Some of the major concepts for our building were this idea that rather than having studios and lecture rooms, things that are more specific, is that there would be these multi-strategic spaces. And that's what you see here. And they could be used for lectures, they could be used for studios or groups of people to gather and discuss something that's happening. We were really trying to think about the way the architecture would be taught in the future, and that we wouldn't necessarily have the same kind of spaces that we have now, the same cubicles, the same types of large dressing and building desks and whatnot. That there would still be places to create things with your hands, but that a lot of it will go digital, and the digital technology continues to get more personal, and it continues to get smaller. And so we're trying to look at that. And to actually end up creating a building that probably itself is a little bit smaller than the one we have now, that we actually think with more of the telecommuting that's going to power those students in the future, that the School of Architecture can actually be a smaller, more efficient building. the same thing.
Based off of some of the surveys, like I said, it was up to the core team to decide whether to keep some of those spaces or get rid of them. Spaces that we saw in the survey would be the library. People wanted to keep the library. People wanted to keep the computer lab. But in essence, we saw the whole building as being a library, as being a computer lab. And we'll explain that.
So these are just a few of the spaces that we chose to sort of get into the detail with and defining the activities that would take place in these spaces. These images are just a few examples of what it possibly could start to look or feel like. But one of the things that came up was this idea of a cafe, possibly a pub, and this sort of atrium space. And this would be a place for casual meetings, for by chance social interactions, a place for people to work from their portable devices. A lot of students would rather sit down at like a coffee shop and work on their laptop rather than going into a studio where they're very isolated and sitting down working. And so it would have sort of an indoor-outdoor, it would have a relationship to the garden or courtyard type of areas that would be part of the site. And I think that's all we need to cover on that one. Okay, another one of the spaces that we started looking at was the idea of a gallery and what kind of display space that we may want and how we might want to improve on what we have now. It could be a place for juries and critiques. It could be a place just for an installation of an exhibit. One of the things we felt like is we wanted to make the items that are in the gallery more visible to the rest of the community and more visible to the rest of the FAMU greater community. So we talked about ideas of having glazing to the exterior so that you could actually show, physical installations. But we also talked about that maybe one of the exterior walls could be a place where you could be projecting digital presentations. So many of our presentations of our work is going digital. Why couldn't you put a huge rendering of a project up on the facade of the building and let it cycle through so that people see a changing facade on the building architecture and they kind of see what sort of things we're working on. It's their project work.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Where the picture of the gallery? Do you know which school this
That's
is?
University of Mexico. So this is talking a little bit more about those sort of multi-use classrooms and that they might be for studio discussions, they might be a place for digital work reviews, and that literally a student maybe who's in that classroom could sit down and they could project their things up onto a smart board and everyone could have a discussion about it and they can pull it back down and the next person can send their stuff up to a projection board. And that's something you can do now. Who knows in 10 years what the technology will improve on. But that also allows students who are telecommuting maybe to participate in the studio experience. So from their laptop at home, they could send something to their smart board and be watching it and have everyone providing feedback or professor discussing something and still be able to be a part of that conversation. Specifically with Interim Dean Chen, we talked about that a lecture room might have students that are actually coming and being a part of the room, and maybe the professor or the lecturer is someone who's broadcasting from somewhere else. Maybe we're just watching a broadcast from a different school of architecture, or maybe we're collaborating with students at a different school of architecture, or maybe the students aren't here and the professor's here and so you're broadcasting something else. You could have either. These areas would be more private and secure, they'd have hard access, all those sorts of things to kind of keep, for one, just the technology secure, and to give us spaces to work.
This was our program adjacency, where the white lines represent primary connections, the yellow is the visual connections, and the green is the secondary connections. If you look at the main entrance is on Martin Luther King, and you'd see that there's a visual connection from the exterior. So you can see the gallery, you have the SOA store, it's all about the Benjamins, and then as you bleed into the space, into the gallery, from there you see other connections such as the cafe and also the outdoor garden. When we came up with this, we thought about three main entries, well, three entries that were most important to us, which was the main entry. There was a secondary entry that was more private, that took you to the offices and the work cubes, and then the parking area. This is a traditional linear layout of the offices right now. We have the public space right there, and then there's the teacher offices, all the same size. And what we propose is something like this, where we have the student cubes, which could seat about 4 students, and then these spaces, which are a little bit more open, and it's about 8 students could bear, have the offices for the students. I talked about interconnectivity and interchanging. So you'd have like a student, you'd have an office for professor, then student, professor, student, and then there's a play between the views. It's twisted rather than just linear, so that you have more sunlight entering. And then when you look across, you have an office of professor. You have to pass by, a professor has to pass by a student office to get to his cubicle. Oh, sorry. And we looked at about the building footprint, whether we wanted to be on the existing building footprint, but maybe a little smaller. And then there was the reasoning, which is mostly visual, the views and whatnot. And then we looked at the second scenario, which pushes the building towards making a connection with the existing landscaping. And we have a secondary entrance on this side. And then we have more space for landscaping over here. And also on the ground level where you would have the construction lab and whatnot, they'll have more outdoor space to work.
What's NIC?
Well, it said it was supposed to be like not in contract. That's what it normally stands for, but it's not in consideration. Was it there? Was it written there?
Yeah, it
It's not
was.
in consideration, not to alter the existing landscaping.
And afterwards, we looked at, using them and using Alliance, everybody, to come up with massings for the different, scenarios and what we want to do and present to the school architecture. This slide's just to show orientation on the, land where the previous building was. This is one scenario that we use a parking garage below, having, I guess, the longer north and south side. You can come in through both entrances, and then maybe the top of it can be a green roof or an interactive area for people. This is our first massing. They can read it. Next scenario is a cluster diagram, but it's I guess centralized area for meeting with groups of people. We're also providing views, providing green roofs towards the northwest, and then photovoltaics towards the southeast. Sorry. Yeah, this is pretty much taking our project goals and just putting different scenarios together for everybody in Revit. We go next. Massing 3, we're providing a outdoor court area. Sorry, I can't talk. Facing the west, we got a nice view over here we're looking at, and then the front of the building will just be the same height along with the sidewalk to go along with the other buildings, I guess, surrounding the site. Next. Looking at all this together, we're going to do an energy analysis of the different ideas, and then we're going to present it to the client, and the client has to make that decision for what they want to do after this process of using BIM. And that is it. Anything else?
So, are you guys finished?
Yes.
So these conceptual BIM models, do they also lead to some additional fine-grained programming after the model has been selected?
Yes, they would. Yeah, you would present some of these conceptual massing options to the client user group, and you would include the data that came out of the energy analysis and some of the evaluation tools that would be available to them. And from there, you would sort of have this coarse grain program definition, and then the user group would ideally be able to have the choice of which one they sort of want to move forward with, and then the details of the fine grain really tend to flesh themselves out as the model is continuing to develop.
Yeah. And so the model that from that point on continues through the whole process, it initially more of a programming conceptual thing, and then it becomes the actual design
It
model.
becomes the actual design model, yeah. And even though from that point on, it would traditionally move towards the architect, you're still gonna have this core IPD team, this team that's working together to continue to refine and flesh out those details. So, in a traditional linear process. It would go straight to the architect, and they might spend months or a year on it, and then it would go back to the contractor or something. In this case, you're gonna have that architect, the contractor, the user group still continuing to be involved as those details are starting to flesh out in the model.
This is not the final, it's due on the 9th.
Okay.
So this is, there's actually gonna be a program document.
Okay.
This is a presentation of the process and of the energy programs, and that's why it's what we're looking at.
So they're, just so I understand, so this is, they were supposed to work as much on the process as at the same time develop a program
Right.
and propose some,
Well, my objective in this class was basically to challenge the traditional conventional sort of programming idea of just doing a list of rooms
yeah,
and to really examine it from a bigger picture of what is current sort of cutting edge design process in offices that are using BIM, that are using integrated team approach, or using some
yeah,
more updated kinds of ideas. What impact does that have, and what change does that make to the programming
yeah,
part, the pre-design part?
yeah,
And so that was kind of the challenge that they took on. And I applaud you for doing that, because you're kind of breaking new ground here. It's not something you probably found in the literature on how to do this, or you saw bits and pieces of what is integrated team design and so on, but trying to put it together with this other perspective of coming at it from programming was quite different.
I think he did a good job. I think it's very valuable to clients, especially big institutional business, big companies. I mean, that's the way they should do things, and if they're smart, that's the way they do things, because the value you get from seeing 3 different options of layout for a floor plan, like you see one of them the whole idea of having the idea of having a little campus of building is maybe attractive, but it probably won't work here in Florida just because of the weather and because of some unpractical things. And when you have a big building with a school of architecture, it's much easier in terms of the spaces, in terms of the mechanical systems, everything to work in one building. But I think what you did with the talking to the dean and to people at school to try to redefine the program is very interesting. And I think you're proposing some good improvements, I think, to this building in particular, which I think is great that they looked at that.
Yeah, that was, well, it was kind of a role-playing simulation exercise where they took on different hats and assumed the role of different people in the actual market.
So everyone has the same project?
Yeah.
So that was their decision.
That was their, yeah, they picked that. That was good.
We have another option, just like the Matrix, so it's just one room and then you just plug in an antenna with your architect.
Yeah, next Wednesday.
And then the light
Everybody ready in here. I think there's a lot of curves. Don't watch your drum.
Okay, you ready? Yeah. Alright guys, my name's Travis Marchant, that's Carlos, Kamala, and Anna, and we are group 2 for our program guide. Here's a picture of the existing building, and that's one of the first things we look at is what we have, because when you already have a building to look at, why not look at it? You can get pros and cons from it. And we want the new architecture program, the new building itself, to be something that can live and grow with the student and faculty several years into the future. When I look at the building, it's kind of like computers nowadays, where you have hardware and software. Well, we want this building to be the hardware, and then the software can change throughout the growth process of the school, and that whether it be 5, 10, 15-year intervals, whatever. With the way technology is advancing, the last 20 years is advancing way faster than the 50 years before that in technology. So that's just something that will keep continually growing and going faster. And one thing we did want to look at when we were actually developing the program, we wanted to look at the building that's here. We wanted to take the ideas from occupants and faculty and see what they like and dislike about the building. We also wanted to look at new buildings, whether there are other schools, other businesses, other offices around the country, around the world, and see what they have already have designed in their buildings and take them and use them as part of ours. That's one thing to make sure you have a successful program is to take successful ideas from other buildings and just implement. And just to break down our team, I'm the client, Carlos is programmer, Mona's architect, and Anna's contractor. I mean, we did this just in the beginning just so we'd have different things, but we like to look at our team as a programming team, not just I'm the client, he's the programmer, so on and so forth, because we're not really working on the design, so you're not necessarily needing a full-time architect. We're developing a program, not a design. So you have ideas from the contractor, but really you just need a programming team that collaborates together. These are the original jobs that we assigned to them, which we started trying to do this and we realized, let's just work together on a team and make a program rather than divvy it up into different, because then you just have a bunch of pieces that have come together. This is a breakdown of our presentation. I'll handle the first 3, and then Kimona will handle the 4, 5, and 6. I'll handle kind of the beginning phase and the information gathering, and then she'll handle the development phase. Here's our work plan for the semester. You can see that many of the blocks were worked on at the same time. That being because a lot of times you develop something new in the program, then you have to go back and fix something that you've already done, and you'll see it just kind of meanders on throughout the semester. But we got it all complete. Here's some of our precedents that we've looked at. This is a school in Singapore, and this is we like the idea of a zero net energy building, and this building uses a lot of horizontal and vertical vegetation with the photovoltaic panels and things like that, and that's something that we would like to have in this building just because it is a learning building, a teaching building, that kind of stuff, and it's good for the future. This is one of the main buildings we looked at just because Google is known around the world, and they're known for having a very successful headquarters, and mainly because they designed their building for the individual, not for the business itself. And they looked at this building as a chance to create spaces for the different individuals, not just one individual. And they created many different spaces, so you create all these general spaces. That way somebody will find somewhere where they feel comfortable, and it's a way of creating inspiration for design and things like that. And it's just a good way to go about maybe designing a school, because we're a bunch of individuals. Nobody's the same. And creating spaces that will cater towards many individuals rather than just a general individual. This is Samsung headquarters, which is the competitor of Google. But one thing would be we liked about this one was just the sustainability of the building, and also it's kind of a huge massing. It's like a beaking
beacon and the city that it's in. So everybody can see it.
Is this in the US or in Korea?
This will be in California.
It will be.
San Jose.
It's not built yet?
It's in.
Yeah, it's under construction. I think.
They may have to wait because they just lost 220 million to Apple. So
That's a drop in the bucket.
I know, but hey, to me it's a lot of money.
That's change, final date for the.
And who is the, do you know who the architect is for the, Google headquarters?
And, you know,
It wasn't, I think it's Clyde Wilkinson.
Yeah, I think Google sent out sort of like a design competition for the new office. And I think there was a fund that was a,
I don't know if y'all seen the new movie, The Internship. Well, that's based on Google. It's kind of funny. Here's the building materials we looked at. We wanted to create different spaces within the school, but to use, say, natural materials and also like this sunscreen that helps with controlling lighting and produces sustainability with the building. And that's just another sustainable aspects we want to integrate in the building itself. And here is the idea of the photovoltaics. Probably get caught up on that word, but and just looking at panels and stuff like that going around the building, also using them maybe as controlling sun shading as well. Like this building that has all kind of little, looks like little pieces of paper sticking off of it that are sunshades. And here's, we did a lot of research on the existing School of Architecture, mainly because this was a great example of what to do and what not to do when you're creating a new program for the building. And also it gives us an idea of what size requirements and things like that we need for the spaces, especially for the individual, say, individual needs 60 square foot minimum for a studio or things like that. And just the different size requirements for each individual. Granted, we may add some in the program, like a cafe and things like that, but this gives us an idea of where to start. And this is just kind of the, that all brought together. Granted, this doesn't take an effect for circulation and things like that, but we're not really worried about that right now. We just want to see what size rooms you need to accommodate 400 students and faculty. Granted, that number may not be that in the future because the way we have distance learning and that kind of thing. We looked at the relationships that are already in place in the building, and whether it be between the atrium, library, and studios, just to get an idea how they are and how they work. One thing that is kind of collaborative throughout the building is that there's a disconnect between the faculty and the students, because you got all the faculty over here in one spot and then all the students over here. It's not really an integration of the two. Here is the goals that we set for actually developing the program. Of course, we want to make an innovative program for we can have a great design in the end. We want it to be an efficient design, and we also want to be timely and so things like that. One thing that we did before we went to the programming was we did a questionnaire for different people around the school, just to get an idea of how the occupants felt about the existing building and what they might think changes will be made. And these are some of the answers, like computers and programs. Granted, some of these things are remedial because everybody here pretty much has laptops. Having computer labs may not be necessarily beneficial in the years to come. But right now people want it just because laptops, not everybody has them, but most people do. But that's kind of what people think you should have computer labs and everywhere, but you don't necessarily have to have them. But like private spaces, things like that. And also, one of the big things we were worried about was security for the school. Do you need private studios with access key cards and things like that, especially if you're going to be working into the night? That might be something we would need to look at, because I know growing up here in town, this side of town is not necessarily known for being friendly after hours. I've grown up here my whole life, but after the last few years here on campus, I'll come here any time of the night, but that's the way for me coming in here, and I've had the experience of being coming to school may not feel that way. And here's just some of the other questionnaires and answers that we've gotten from others, of the, questionings. Here is one thing we looked at, cause there's a couple of different master plans for the school. They're kind of similar, but they've changed over the years. But this is kind of one of the more recent ones. And then here's the idea of, just to give you an idea, this is the school bus picture. This is what they're kind of going for in the future. They want that kind of green river type thing going through the campus. You can just see all the buildings broken up. Here is how they break up the things. You can see they have color coordinations for, like the red is the academic section, so we're zoned academic for this site. And then you can see they have a lot of space for green space throughout the campus, and then also they want this connection of plazas throughout, so that might be something we can look at here. We got a lot of area that we can make plazas. Here's the figure grounding. That's the whole FAMU campus. That's all their land. So we got a few dots and a lot of open space to work with. This is a site here that we did kind of a just solar study of it. That would be needed when actually designing the external pieces of the structure. This is another just a site study here. The vegetation that's already existing, topography that has been.
For the second phase, we wanted to, like Kevin said, when we did the study of the school, we realized that the faculty is on one side and the students is on the other side. And we wanted it to be more connected, to be integrated into creating space that will be considered an uncollectible experience. So we looked at spatial relationship like the function, how things work, how they flow together. Is it flexible? Do we have enough access to space? And like I said, we want to integrate the students with the faculty. So one of the strategies that we looked at was having students and faculty working together. So it's not like students on one side and whenever I want to see the faculty, I have to walk all the way across. But it would be like students and faculty would be in the same space. We looked at integrating faculty and students and also classrooms, and we thought daylighting plays an integral part in design, so we also looked at ways that we could have enough daylighting for both faculty, for students, and also for classrooms. We looked at other spaces from the survey that we did. We thought that computer labs, also printing facilities and digital fabrication labs plays an integrated part also. So we wanted to tie those in and classrooms would be interactive, and we like the idea of having outdoor classrooms and online classrooms. We also looked at the quantitative requirements, what's the assignable square footage, and also what's the amount of area that's needed for circulation, mechanical, electrical, and also telephone equipment. And putting those together, we want the concept to be, the building to be efficient. We kind of break down the studios like first year, second year, and also presentation space, what's needed, what the square footage needed for these spaces. We didn't get in depth because it wasn't required for this part of the program, but we thought it's also a good idea for a team to have an understanding of what's the cost. So we kind of like looked into that aspect of it also. our final program, we sit down and we spoke about the idea of seeing the School of Architecture as it is an airport. And the concept is that it's the first time around, the experience wasn't that good, you wouldn't want to return, right? So we see it as an airport, and the first time you traveled, your experience was bad. You probably never travel again. So we looked into the concept of having the airport as the School of Architecture, and the things that go on within the airport will give you a perfect or a good experience that you would want to return. So we break down the programs, like I said, into different sections of the airport, and we consider the office which had meeting rooms like check-in stations and security. And what I don't like when I travel is having to take my shoes off and do all of that. It makes you kind of feel uncomfortable. But if the first thing you see is this environment that's warm and welcoming, the start of the experience would be very good. So we consider the offices and the meeting rooms as somewhere that is welcoming and gives you that sense of wanting to go back. And we also looked at the spaces that connect to the offices and to the meeting room, or the next level as we move from there would be this open space, kind of like having kitchens, community rooms, kind of dwelling. That's the second feel of what we were looking for. And also having somewhere that daylight would, natural light and views, having windows and balconies, somewhere that you could just step out for a few minutes and still feel like you're in that comfort zone. We also looked at a place which would be, the next step would be the cafe, would be considered like a restaurant, a courtyard in the airport, the food snack shop, and it would be a place of both students, faculty, staff, just that place that you want to relax. And we believe that if you're going to spend a lot of time in the building, it should be somewhere that you feel at home and feel relaxed, right? We saw the bookshop in the airport as the library. It wouldn't be just formal, but like we said, we want the experience to be one of relaxing, somewhere where you want to spend a lot of time. It's not like you're in a haste to leave, because the students are the clients and we're here to make their experience comfortable. And what we found in our research is that the students here wanted somewhere that they don't have to go all the way across town to get art supplies. So why not provide it here? And the stores would be like the souvenirs place in the airport, and they'll have art supplies and stuff that they have ready to at their access. We saw the gallery space as not only just for students, but what if we create a museum that is open to the public? So we'll also have students work displayed in the museum, but we'll also open it to the public. And we found a good example done by Peter Eisenman, where it's in Ohio State University, and what they have is actually a museum, but it's connected to the School of Architecture. And we thought that was very good. The classroom wouldn't be like we have now. Believe me, I don't like this kind of setting. We want it to be somewhere more interactive, somewhere relaxing, somewhere that, like I said, you feel engaged and you can interact with the environment of the classroom. We also looked at the studio as the home of the airport, where the studio itself will be an actual office where the professors will be the registered architects and we'll be working for them, so it will be our real office space, not just we're here for 2 or 4 years and then when you get out in the real world, you don't really have an understanding of what is required, but we'll be doing actual projects while we're here. So we wanted the students to be an office. We also looked at mobile studios, where the School of Architecture, like last semester they went to Europe. Why not let it be a part of the School of Architecture and just instead of just having it as a one-time thing where it would become a part of the studio where we'll have a studio in Japan per se, somewhere in USA, in the Caribbean, Australia, Paris, also Italy, but the family School of Architecture is connected to these and you could go for a semester, gather information, do a studio there, and then come back and display it in our museum.
Is that why we need the airport?
Yeah.
Jumbo jets.
Yeah, the outdoor space would be like the baggage area, but it won't be that headache that you have all the time. It will actually be a more relaxing place to collect your and like in conclusion, like I said, we want it to be a really good experience that when you leave, you'll want to recommend it to persons you know, and you'll also feel the need to come back because the first time around was that good.
Any questions?
You know, I think it's interesting to use that metaphor or the analogy of the airport terminal, but I think it's a bit of a stretch. It works at certain levels, but I think it would have been okay for you to switch to other analogies as well that were, for example, the baggage thing. I mean, I don't understand that. And I think we'd still make you take your shoes off.
Yeah, I think the comparison to the airport is a stretch. I think there are spaces in the airport that you could look at and say, you know, they're very. An airport is a transition. This is not it's not a transition building. You're coming here to come to the building. You're going to the airport to go somewhere else. Just the function is different. But you're right that there's quality of spaces in airports that are there's a huge amount of natural light. The spaces are very large because people are so stressed out. They're about ready to get in a tin can for 8 hours. You have to relax them. Tell them it's okay. Look outside the window. You can see your airplane. It's everything's okay. So it's a different. I mean, imagine if you were in an enclosed space before getting in the airplane and it was an 8 foot ceiling. People would freak out because it's just psychologically. It's already you have to be able to put people in these things to fly. So, but I think if you look at let's say, airport terminal with some of these smaller spaces, I mean, there's nice relationship of scale, and the quality of the spaces in airports are nice usually because they really pay attention to that to make people feel comfortable. I mean, the daylighting is huge as you know as part of being able to be productive, learning and creating things and. I mean, there's some positive things in your presentation about, but I would just be careful when you make comparisons like that, because it's just, it doesn't mean, you can't compare everything and anything, but,
When you chose to look at this building first, I'm okay with that because it's sort of like the post-occupancy evaluation exercise we talked about in class, where you look at what's working and what isn't working and what what can you learn from how this building is? But that has a downside in that it perhaps prevents you from really daydreaming about something very different. Because you get into this pattern of thinking about, well, how can we make this existing thing better, rather than reinventing it almost wholesale. And so, did you do any of that with brainstorming or thinking about how you could totally reimagine a school of architecture?
To an airport.
Yeah, but this place kind of feels like an airport already.
Well, and really when we did the airport, it's not about the connections in the airport, it's about different spaces now. They have like the cafe, the terminals, and like the check-in. It's not about the idea of an airport design, it's about how airports are a city within themselves. And that's one of the things I want to look at with an airport.
And I think the idea of a better connection between faculty and students, I mean, that makes sense. It's a good thing, I think.
The problem with that is they're gonna see how little time we spend here.
Maybe that's a good thing. Like, how many hours is he being paid for today?
No, it's a good thing for that to change. Personally.
And I think some of the, between this presentation and the first one, I think some of the good thing that you guys are emphasizing is, like, I think an area in a school of architecture where there's like a constant exhibit of student work, I think is a great idea. Where some schools do that.
Yeah.
Because that's all what it's about. I mean, it's a place of creation, of looking at people's work. You should be able, there should
That's what
almost,
you're trying to do upstairs.
there should be a space where you let people walk constantly, and you shouldn't have to go there, and then there should be student work. Just like, almost like, hey, I feel like putting up something, I did this drawing, or I did this design, and that's, because this is, architecture is about kind of, we're all supposed to be passionate about what we do, and we want to share what we're designing, and that's what you as students. And I think that's a great concept. The concept of the better connecting the students and the professors is good. It's the same thing in the workplace actually that's happening, and it's happened for a long time, but it's so much better productivity-wise. Like, if you put the registered architects and the managers right next to the drafters and just junior level employees in architecture firms, it's just human nature. If you have to walk across the hall to ask a question about the detail, some people will be like, you know what, I won't bother. And then if it's easy and you can go sit at the table and the guy's right there and say, hey Bob, I have a question, and they can say, yeah, sure. And it's that easy, but it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I really like that aspect of what you proposed of making a simulation of an actual professional office as a studio, so that the principals are there, then you got all the things that are in an office. Our time's out. We actually ran over 5 minutes. Some people have to go somewhere. So, all right. So Monday we'll go to the next two, and hopefully.